Okay guys, here's what we're going to do today is we're going to solve quadratics by factoring. We know how to factor, that's what we did on that last formative. So when we're solving quadratics, that's when we're dealing with things with x squared. Then we have some other stuff, but then we also have the equal sign. Okay guys, here's a definition that's going to be kind of important to what we're doing today. It's called the zero product property. All it's saying is if we have two terms that are multiplied together and equal 0, at least one of those terms has to equal 0. So in this math lingo, it's just saying if I have a times b and it equals 0, either a is 0 or b has to be 0. That's going to help us out when we're going to do this next part when we're solving. So here's our steps when we're solving by factoring. One of the biggest things is this second one, that we want to move everything to one side so that it equals 0. Then we're going to factor and then solve for each of them, and you'll see in the next example, but this is a nice little thing to go back to if you have questions. Okay, so for this example, one of the big things that I said was important is when you're solving a quadratic, you have to have it equal to 0. So we have x squared, okay, and I'm going to subtract this 20 from both sides so that I can set it equal to 0. So I have x squared plus 8x minus 20 equals 0. Okay, now once you have that, we're going to factor it on. So if I kind of covered out that equals 0 part, I'm going to look at what I used to do when I said, okay, what things multiply to negative 20, but I'll add up to a positive 8. Okay, you can add 1 and 20. Well, I know that's not going to work. How about 2 and 10? And I want a positive, so let's make that a negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have x minus 2, x plus 10. Now, that's kind of a similar thing. The only thing that's new now is that equals 0. Okay, so I want to solve. So I want x equals something. So once you have them like this, these are two things being multiplied by each other. So I know that if they equal 0, one of them has to equal 0. So I'm going to set both of them equal to 0 and solve for x. So x minus 2 equals 0 and x plus 10 equals 0. Now, if I do the left one first, I add 2 to both sides. So x equals 2. Okay, on the other side, if I subtract 10, x equals negative 10. Okay, so now I have two solutions for this quadratic. And that's my answer. All right, for this one, if we look, it already equals 0. So half that battle is already done for me. But now before I start trying to factor this, I notice that 4, 14, and 30 all have a number in common. Okay, so I'm actually going to take out that 2 that they all have in common. So I have a 2. Now I'm going to be left with 2x squared minus 7x minus 15 equals 0. Okay. Now, before I move on to try to factor it, since I'm trying to solve for these, I can go ahead and divide both sides by 2. So then I'm just left with 2x squared minus 7x minus 15 equals 0 divided by 2 is just 0. Okay. Now I can go ahead and try to factor this. So 2 times 15 gives me negative 30. Okay. Now what things multiply to negative 30 but add up to negative 7? Well, 3 and 10, but one of them has to be negative, so it'll be a negative 10. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and set up my factors. Put a little bit of x right there. So I have 2x and x. Okay. Now I have to use this 2 to make either 3 or 10. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Okay. I'm going to add 3 there. And remember, I have to set these both equal to 0 now. Okay, since it's equal to 0, since I'm solving, we need to set them equal to 0. So I have 2x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 5 equals 0. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do this one. I'm going to subtract 3. So 2x equals negative 3. Divide both sides by 2. So x equals negative 3 over 2, which is perfectly fine that we have that as a fraction. Don't be alarmed because it's a fraction. Sometimes they will be fractions. Okay, but just keep it like that. Now let's go ahead and do the other side. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So x equals positive 5. So there's my two answers. X equals negative 3/2 and x equals 5. All right, for this one, we're going to go ahead and solve it. don't fool yourself with this one. Let's just look at it first. If you notice, we just have an x squared plus 8x. I can tell that there's an x that goes into both of those. So I'm going to write this as x, and then parentheses x plus 8. Now, this might seem like a little bit, you're kind of stumped, but think, I just want two things multiplied by each other, which I have x times x plus 8. So now I can kind of already go ahead and set both of these equal to 0. This one's actually pretty quick, because x equals 0. Hey, look, I'm done. And then I have x plus 8 equals 0. So then x is going to equal negative 8. And that's it for that one. There's our two answers for our quadratic. Okay, for this last one, if we take a look, two of my terms are on the wrong side. So I'm going to go ahead and move the 28x and the 9 over to the other side by doing the opposite operation. The reason why I don't move the 3x squared is because I don't want to deal with a negative, because we have to factor out negatives, so it's kind of just easier to keep your x squared term a positive. Okay, so I'm going to have 3x squared minus 28x plus 9 equals 0. Okay. Now, if I look, 3, 28, and 9 don't have a number in common, so I can't take out a GCF. So I'm just going to go ahead and multiply 3 times 9, which is going to give me 27. Okay. Now I have to think, what things multiply to 27 but will add up to a negative 28? Well, don't forget 1 and 27, okay, but that adds up to a positive 28, so I need to do negatives. Yep, that'll work. So we have 3x and x. Okay, so 3 goes into 27 9 times. Okay, so negative 9, and then put my minus 1 there. Set this equal to 0. Now remember, since I have those two, now I set both of them equal to 0 and solve for x. So 3x minus 1 equals 0. And then x minus 9 equals 0. Okay, so add 1, so 3x equals 1. Divide by 3. X equals a positive 1/3. And then if I add 9 to both sides, x equals a positive 9. Okay. All right, and that's it for solving by factoring. So today, the only difference that we've done today compared to what we've done for the past week is we ended up having to set them equal to 0 and then solve for x, because we're actually solving these. Just the method that we're using is factoring. All right, that's it. Go ahead and try your practice problems. Good luck.